Okay, gather round, folks, and listen to this wild, spiritual saga that unfolded at Mrs. Huyen's faux joint. You won't believe it. Barely had I walked in the door, still hadn't even plopped down on the sofa, when Mrs. Huyen starts hollering, "Where's that kid of yours? Get me some water. Is it even legal how hot it is outside? You, Miss Daughter of the District, just turned 24 this year. You're an economics grad with a degree in accounting, working on your master's, and since you're not employed, you're always underfoot." Hearing her mom's booming voice, me shuffles up from the kitchen, carefully carrying a glass of water to Mrs. Huyen. Even with the fan blasting a gale next to her, she still looked like she was about to spontaneously combust from the heat. Partly the weather, yeah, but mostly because she was a plus-sized woman teetering on the edge of 50. She gulped down the whole glass, then finally had enough energy to talk. "I just got back from seeing Sister Dong Tan, the fortune teller. I swear to God, she nailed everything about our house, every single detail. Now, folks around town will tell you Mrs. Huyen is about as subtle as a foghorn. Says whatever pops into her head, wears her heart on her sleeve. So, the fact that she called her daughter you and that kid wasn't exactly shocking. Let me give you a little backstory on Mrs. Huyen. She's a small-town girl, born and raised in Tai Ben province, in a dirt-poor farming family. But she's got this fire in her, this refusal to accept a life of backbreaking labor, working the fields from sunup to sundown. At 18, she packed her bags and headed to Hanoi, landing a job as a dishwasher at a pho restaurant. And that's where she met Mr. Hai, a regular customer, and me's biological father. Turns out, Mr. Hai was a city boy from the old quarter, son of retired government officials, or so I hear. He was head over heels for Mrs. Huyen back then. He kept her a secret from his family, renting her a tiny room so he could sneak around and see her. When Mrs. Huyen got pregnant, she told him to take her home and introduce her to his parents. But Mr. Hai kept dragging his feet, making excuses. Suspecting he wasn't being straight with her, and true to her fiery nature, she hired a rickshaw and went straight to his parents' house to confront them. To her surprise, Mr. Hai's parents acted completely indifferent when she told them they were going to be grandparents. His mother even said something that stuck with Mrs. Huyen forever. "Small-town girls are easy marks. I know all your tricks. You show up here fresh off the farm, get into bed with a man to snag a city address. You expect me to believe that babies even highs?" Mrs. Huyen was seeing red, but she kept her cool, probably thinking about that little life growing inside her. After an hour of veiled insults and snide remarks, Mr. Hai's mother finally said something that made Mrs. Huyen breathe a sigh of relief. "We're a respectable family, and we don't condone premarital relations. But we're not heartless. You can come live here until the baby's born. If the child turns out to be Hai's, we'll have a wedding." So, that day, Mrs. Huyen moved into her maybe-husband's house with nothing but the clothes on her back. No wedding, no introductions to the extended family. She lived in his house but without any real status. She quit her job at the pho restaurant and became a full-time housemaid, cooking, cleaning, and waiting on her in-laws hand and foot, without a dime to her name, not even a break with her belly sticking way out. Mr. Hai's mother controlled all the money he earned. Mrs. Huyen had to beg for everything she needed. And Mr. Hai? He was too scared of his mother to help his wife with anything but empty words of comfort. Life was suffocating, but Mrs. Huyen endured it, convinced that things would get better once the baby was born. But life, as usual, had other plans. The situation reached a breaking point that finally made Mrs. Huyen leave. Mr. Hai's mother went through her daughter-in-law's closet and found a single gold ring Mrs. Huyen had been saving. She planned to sell it when she went into labor to cover the hospital bills. It was the only thing she had managed to save after months of washing dishes. Mr. Hai's mom snatched that ring. Then, she screamed and cursed Mrs. Huyen, calling her a freeloader, accusing her of hiding valuables. Mrs. Huyen had had enough. This time, she wasn't going to let that ring go without a fight. Pregnant as she was, she snatched the ring back and got a slap across the face for her trouble, courtesy of her mother-in-law. Seeing that her marriage was a dead end, she packed her bags and left that very night, despite Mr. Hai's pleas for her to stay. She went to a friend's house, starting over and cutting off all contact with Mr. Hai. A spineless man with no backbone. That's why Mrs. Huyen became a single mom. Life's hard knocks taught her some bitter lessons about the ways of the world. She realized that romance wouldn't make her life any better. The man she once loved could abandon her. Only money was the only thing that would never betray her. So, when her daughter was just 6 months old, she put me in daycare and went back to work at the same pho restaurant. They say a woman glows after having a baby, and it was true for her. Mrs. Huyen got even prettier, attracting the attention of all kinds of smitten men. But learning from her first love, she only had eyes for the wealthy ones, didn't care if they were married or not, as long as they were willing to spend money on her. At 57, Mrs. Huyen opened her own pho restaurant, called Pho Huyen. It became a hit. A few years later, she opened a second, then a third. The fancy house on Hong Kwok Viet Street was built soon after the third restaurant opened. Besides going through men like water, Mrs. Huyen was also incredibly superstitious. She never missed a temple visit on the 1st or 15th of the lunar month. She'd seek out any psychic or fortune teller with a good reputation, asking for blessings and amulets. Some folks said, Mrs. Huyen uses black magic. That's why her pho restaurant is always packed. Whether it's true or not, her success was plain for all to see. After nearly 20 years of prosperity, Pho Huyen was facing some serious competition. The restaurant still had customers, but it wasn't as packed as it used to be. This really bothered Mrs. Huyen. That's why, early this morning, she hired a car to take her all the way to Ung Hoa to see Sister Dong Tan, hoping for some answers. Whatever the fortune teller said, Mrs. Huyen came home convinced. I knew it. Someone's jealous and trying to sabotage us. The fortune teller confirmed it. We're under attack. That's why business is so slow, we're barely scraping by. Get me another glass of water, she said. Me calmly asked, under attack? What does that mean, Mom? Have you ever played chess? It's like when the other player directly threatens your king. If you lose your king, you lose the game, you lose everything. You get it? It's the same in this situation. The fortune teller is saying that someone is using feng shui against us, using objects to suppress our success, to keep us from rising to the top. Even with the fan blowing, Mrs. Huyen fanned herself with a paper fan, trying to relieve her anxiety. People say fortune tellers are full of it, but here you are, throwing money at these charlatans. Things are different now. New restaurants are popping up everywhere. People are eating all kinds of food. It's no surprise they're switching from pho to something else. Mrs. Huyen jumped up as if she'd just had a revelation. Me, what's going on with you and Khan? Don't let that golden goose get away. Understand? Hold on tight to him. Khan is our lucky charm. He's crazy about you. He'll do anything you say. Marry him and sweet-talk him into signing that Kwa Hak guest house over to you. You won't have to work a day in your life. Your fancy college degree won't get you much of a job, and if it does, the salary won't be anything to brag about. You'd just be a paper-pushing office worker, starving to death. Me knew the speech by heart, so she just stayed quiet. Like her mother in her youth, Me was beautiful, with expressive eyes, porcelain skin, and an hourglass figure. That's why she caught Khan's eye. Khan was a rich kid who had studied abroad. A face for radio, a wallet for days. That's Khan in a nutshell. When he came back to the country, his friends took him to Pho Huyen for breakfast. He saw me and fell head over heels. He chased her for 2 years before she finally said yes. Truth be told, with his money, he could have any girl he wanted. But it took 2 years to win over me because he wasn't exactly blessed in the looks department. He had a wide face, a big nose, a lazy eye, a stocky build, and he was only 5 foot nothing. Guess you can't have it all. Khan's dad was a hospital director, and his mom owned restaurants and hotels, so they had money to burn. Khan himself was smart and well-educated. If he had the looks, he could be a movie star. But that wasn't the case. That's why Mrs. Huyen called him her golden goose. Me agreed to date Khan because of her mother. Me was gentle and loved her mom. She knew Mrs. Huyen had never forgotten those hellish days in Mr. Hai's house. It was her pain, her nightmare. She had raised me on her own, and it wasn't easy. So, me always tried to be a good daughter to make her mom happy. Kana's family is loaded. Once you marry him and become a hotel owner, I'll sell the faux restaurants and retire. Me and your stepfather will finally get to enjoy our golden years, without having to worry about jealous people trying to sabotage us. Me quietly got up and went into the kitchen, partly because she didn't want to hear the same old speech, partly because it was lunchtime. They had a housekeeper, but she had taken the day off, so me had to cook. Mrs. Huyen went upstairs to call Mr. Thursday, her boyfriend, down for lunch. A strong, wealthy woman. She had one thing she was constantly searching for: the perfect partner. For her, a man had to meet 3 criteria: good-looking, loyal, and not interested in her money. His background didn't matter. She knew that at almost 50, she wouldn't be able to find some rich sugar daddy like she did when she was younger. Whoever was with her just needed to love and care for her. Just as Me was putting the food on the table, her 2 best friends arrived. Her girlfriend Fan was the same age as Me, and the boy, Not, was 2 years older. They were at Me's so often they were practically family. Mrs. Huyen and Mr. Thursday weren't surprised to see them. It was lunchtime, so everyone sat down at the table like a family. Not said, "Mrs. Huyen, we're planning a trip to Hajong in 2 weeks. Can me go?" Mrs. Huyen, putting food in Mr. Thursday's bowl, thought for a moment. "No, it's not a good time for me to travel. Maybe you can go another time." "Why not, Mom? Why can't I go?" "Because I said so. If you're going somewhere, you should go with Khan. You're his girlfriend, so you need to be mindful of what people think. Don't give his family a reason to look down on you." Hearing her, Me, Not, and Fan bowed their heads in silence. They knew they couldn't argue with Mrs. Huyen, or they'd get banned from the house. After lunch, while Mrs. Huyen and Mr. Thursday went upstairs to rest, Not and Fan helped Me with the dishes. Fan comforted her friend. "Don't be sad. You can go another time. We'll check it out first, then bring you back a souvenir." "Yeah, I hear it snows up there in the winter. Maybe we can all go again at the end of the year if Mrs. Huyen lets you." Thanks to her friend's encouragement, Me felt a little better. There was no denying that Mrs. Huyen was a controlling mother. Although she never said it out loud, her constant control made me feel suffocated. From little things to big things, Me needed Mrs. Huyen's permission. Even though she was a young woman, a college graduate, she was at the age when she should be able to make her own decisions. Still, this time Mrs. Huyen was right. As a mother, she felt uneasy about her daughter traveling. If something happened, she'd never forgive herself. Mr. Thursday sat on the sofa by the window, sipping his tea and reading the newspaper. He didn't look at Mrs. Huyen, but he still asked, "Why don't you let me go out with her friends? They're young and single, they should be enjoying life. Holding her back isn't good." Mrs. Huyen, at her vanity, putting on lotion, snapped, "What do you know? I had my fortune read by Sister Dongtan today. She said Me's luck is terrible this month. I didn't want to worry her. I just want to marry her off and be done with it. I'm glad I listened to you and bought insurance for the whole family. Now, if the sky falls, the insurance company will take care of it." Mrs. Huyen laughed like she'd won the lottery. They say she's materialistic, and it's true. Other than money, nothing else seems to bother her. "Oh, did you find out who's been snooping around the house lately?" Mr. Thursday put down the newspaper and nodded. "This Bun Hai's people." "Bun Hai? Who's that?" Mrs. Huyen mumbled, trying to remember. "Oh, you mean the old quarter Hai? He owns that Bun Chanjio place a couple blocks from here. It's designed all funky. The awning looks like an arrow pointed straight at us. That's him. He's sabotaging us. A jerk is always a jerk. That bastard. He designed that arrow to ruin our business. But he's got another thing coming. I'll show them. We've never had any problems with them. We sell different things, so why is he trying to hurt us?" Mr. Thursday wondered, but Mrs. Huyen didn't answer. Even though he didn't know her relationship with Mr. Hai, he knew better than to ask. Once she didn't want to talk, you couldn't get anything out of her. Based on what Mr. Thursday said, Mrs. Huyen guessed that because she didn't let me acknowledge her father, Mr. Hai's family was using feng shui to ruin her business. Mr. Hai was gentle, so this was probably his mother's idea. The old lady was over 70, but they say her eyes are still sharp, and her ears are still good. When she ran into Mrs. Huyen at the supermarket, she always made snide remarks. If she wasn't old, Mrs. Huyen would have fought her. She immediately invited Sister Dong Tan to perform a ceremony at her house to counter Mr. Hai's spell. Sister Tan said, "They're pointing an arrow at you, so you need to build a shield. Then I'll do a ceremony to break the curse." So, Mrs. Huyen hired an artist to build a shield in the style of ancient Greek architecture to put on the roof. Took half a month to finish. Then, in the family shrine, Sister Dong Tan spent all day and night helping her with the ceremony. All the noise was driving me crazy. That Sunday, Khan came to take me out, and Mrs. Huyen agreed right away. She wanted to bring the two together. "Go on, you can stay out as long as you want." Khan took me to his family's hotel, wanting her to get used to the place so she could help him manage it later. Khan agreed and took me by the hand to his G63. Busy with the ceremony, Mrs. Huyen didn't realize her daughter hadn't come home until the evening. But she figured me was at Khan's hotel, resting. That was fine. They were going to be married soon. She wouldn't mind if they got a little ahead of themselves. At 6, Mr. Thursday came home. Every evening, he met his friends at a bar for a few beers and some gossip. It was his routine. Mrs. Huyen didn't complain or interfere. Walking into the dining room, he saw the food was ready, but only Mrs. Huyen was waiting. He asked, "Where's me?" "She's at Khan's. Let her stay there, the longer the better. Maybe we'll be getting promoted to in-laws soon." Music. That's good. Khan seems eager to get married. He's just waiting for me to say yes. Me is nothing like you. If it were you, you would have married Khan a long time ago. Marrying the son of a hospital director means you can just sit back and relax, not worry about anything. Her little accounting job barely pays enough to buy lipstick. Khan. Losing the foreign appeal was a bit of a setback, but handsomeness only gets you so far, you know? Don't you think I'm right? Mr. Thursday nodded in agreement, offering no further comment on the young couple. That night, it rained cats and dogs. Despite the torrential downpour outside, Mrs. Huyen clearly heard the doorbell ringing from the ground floor. The housekeeper was nowhere to be found, so she wasn't answering the door. Muttering under her breath, Mrs. Huyen got up, slipped on her house slippers and hurried downstairs. She flipped on the lights, illuminating the entryway, and called out, "Van? Van, see who's ringing the doorbell at this hour. It's the middle of the night, disturbing people's sleep. Honestly, some people are just crazy." Van was Mrs. Huyen's housekeeper. She usually had trouble sleeping at night, so it was strange that she was sleeping so soundly. Neither the doorbell nor the knocking seemed to wake her. Only when Mrs. Huyen called out did she stir. She rushed out of her bedroom, keys in hand. She fumbled with the lock, opened the door, grabbed an umbrella, and headed outside. A moment later, she returned and announced, "There's nobody at the gate, Mrs. Huyen. Must be some brat playing a prank. Just turn off the bell and go back to sleep. Crazy kids, I tell you. Or maybe I should just leave the bell on. What if me comes home? I need to know to open the door. Don't bother. It's pouring rain out there. Me's not crazy enough to come home in this weather." As soon as Mrs. Huyen finished speaking, a deafening clap of thunder shook the house, causing both women to jump and cover their ears. Mrs. Huyen's face paled slightly, and she stammered, Okay. Leave the bell on if you want. I'm going to bed. This thunder is giving me the creeps." Van returned to her room but couldn't fall back asleep. She tossed and turned in bed until the doorbell rang again. She had a feeling me had returned, so she quickly ran out to open the gate. Sure enough, she was right. Me was really back this time. "Oh, Me, why would you come back in such a storm? Why didn't you put on a raincoat? Come inside before you catch a cold." She tried to offer me the umbrella, but the young woman ignored it and went straight into the house. Van locked the gate carefully and then followed her inside. She had been working for Mrs. Huyen and her daughter for 10 years. She loved and cared for me like her own granddaughter. So seeing her return in the pouring rain, soaked to the bone, worried her greatly. The first thing she did when she got inside was knock on Me's door. "Me, are you hungry? Want something warm to eat?" Me didn't answer, which only made Van more worried. She continued to knock, waiting for me to respond. Me's bedroom was right next to Mrs. Huyen's, so the noise quickly reached her ears. Mrs. Huyen opened her door, her voice filled with annoyance. "What's going on, Van?" Van pointed to Me's room. "Me's back. But I've been calling her, and she's not answering. I'm worried she caught a cold in the rain and passed out inside." Mrs. Huyen frowned and walked over to Van's side, then knocked on Me's door. Me opened the door. "Let me see you." When there was still no response, Mrs. Huyen, never one for patience, went back to her room, grabbed her keys and unlocked her daughter's door. The room was dark and quiet. Mrs. Huyen flipped on the light switch, instantly illuminating everything, but Me was nowhere to be seen. She turned back, frowning at Van. "Where's Me? You said she was back. Where is she?" Van, flustered, went straight into the room and called out, "Me? Me, where are you?" She opened the bathroom door but didn't find Me there either. She became increasingly frantic. "Was I dreaming, Mrs. Huyen? Where did Me come from? You're just getting old and senile. Go back to sleep." Van stammered, trying to explain, but she couldn't find the words. Mrs. Huyen had already gone back to her bedroom and slammed the door shut. That's when Van noticed the floor. She saw wet footprints leading from the door to Me's bed. She had no choice but to go downstairs, get a mop, and clean up the water, worried someone might slip and fall. But a sense of unease began to settle in her heart. That night she couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in bed, her hand on her forehead, as if deep in thought. Suddenly, she sat up, muttering to herself, "If Me didn't come back, where did those wet footprints come from?" She was certain she hadn't been dreaming, so she jumped out of bed and ran out of the room. She turned on the lights and searched the house for Me, careful not to make too much noise and wake Mrs. Huyen. She walked around, softly calling, "Me? Me, where are you?" Mrs. Huyen's house had 4 floors, including the ground floor. So Van started her search from the first floor and worked her way up to the 4th. That's when she noticed the strange wet footprints leading from Me's room all the way to the door of the ancestral hall. Her heart pounding, she turned on the hallway light and saw that the door to the hall was ajar, still swinging as if someone had just entered. She continued to call Me's name. She cautiously pushed open the door to the hall. Just then, the hallway light flickered erratically, adding to her growing sense of dread. At the same time, a flash of lightning illuminated a figure with long, flowing hair. She was kneeling on the floor, not in prayer but seemingly doing something. Although she was almost certain it was Me, her heart raced. She stammered, "Me? Is that you? What are you looking for? Let me help you find it." She reached for the light switch to turn on the lights, but strangely the lights didn't turn on. The young woman's movements suddenly stopped. She slowly stood up and turned her head towards Van. But strangely, her body didn't move. Only her head seemed to rotate 180 degrees. Van gasped in shock, too terrified to speak. Another flash of lightning illuminated the young woman's pale face. Tears of blood slowly streamed down her face from her eye sockets. "Me? What's wrong, dear?" The girl's clothes were soaking wet, water dripping onto the tile floor, even flowing towards where Van was standing. Van suddenly caught a whiff of a horrifying, metallic scent of blood. She looked down at her feet, the flickering light from the hallway just enough for her to realize that the liquid was fresh blood. She screamed in terror and ran for her life out of the ancestral hall. In her fear and panic, she tripped on the stairs, tumbling down and losing consciousness. Music! Van! Oh my God! What happened? Van slowly opened her eyes, the images in front of her gradually coming into focus. She recognized Mrs. Huyen and Mr. Thursday shaking her. But still disoriented, she could only whisper, I'm in so much pain. Here, I'll carry her to the car. We need to get her to the hospital to get checked out." "How did you fall down the stairs like that?" "I don't know. At the hospital, Van underwent x-rays and scans, but fortunately, there were no broken bones or blood clots in her head, only soft tissue damage which explained the pain. Upon returning home, Van told Mrs. Huyen everything that had happened the night before. "I swear I'm not lying, Mrs. Huyen. I clearly saw me in the ancestral hall." Her face. But she looked so scary. All right. I believe you're not lying. But perhaps you were just dreaming. You should rest today. Don't do anything. I'll have someone bring you food and drinks. Eat some porridge and take your medicine to feel better." After closing Van's door, Mrs. Huyen quickly pulled Mr. Thursday away. As they walked, she muttered, "That Van is really sick. She's just getting old and senile. I need to find someone younger who can actually do the job." Check the security camera footage again. Van really did open the gate twice last night. But besides her, there was no one there. I'm afraid her lack of sleep is affecting her mental state. That's probably it. Anyway, she's nearing retirement age. Once we find someone else, we'll let her retire. Just as Mrs. Huyen finished speaking, the phone rang. She answered, and a man with a deep, calm voice spoke on the other end. "May I speak to Mrs. Huyen, me's mother?" "Who is this? What's wrong?" "I'm from the Truong Phuc District Police. We've discovered a body suspected to be your daughter. Please come to the Truong Phuc District Police Station to help us with the identification process." Mrs. Huyen hadn't even fully understood the message before responding. Hey, you think I'm a fool and easy to trick? Huh? First, you threatened to cut off my electricity, then my water. Now you want me to go to the police station. Go trick someone else, kid." Then she hung up the phone. "They do nothing all day but try to eat. Eat electricity, you." "Who was that, honey?" "Those scammers from Cambodia. Let's go out to the restaurant and see how things are going. Business has been slow lately. It's making me nervous." As Mrs. Huyen walked out the door, the phone rang again. This time, she decided to put it on speakerphone so she could give them a piece of her mind. But before she could open her mouth, the man on the other end spoke. "I'm calling to inform you that we suspect the body we found in the drainage ditch on the edge of the rice fields in Tam Daeng Commune, Truong Phuc District, is that of your daughter, me. Please come to identify the body and cooperate with the investigation." The man's voice struck Mrs. Huyen like a bolt of lightning. She stammered, Are you telling the truth?" In her head, she suddenly heard the fortune-teller's words. "Your daughter is in grave danger this month. It's best if she doesn't travel far or bring back any gifts." Music. Truong Phuc District was a suburban district, sparsely populated, more like a simple rural village. The locals still farmed rice like in the provinces. Sitting in the passenger seat next to Mr. Thursday, Mrs. Huyen's heart pounded and her legs trembled as she secretly prayed for Mi's safety. Truong Phuc District was so far away. What would Mi be doing there? There must be some mistake. Mi had gone out with Khan yesterday. There was no reason why Khan would bring her to such a desolate place. If they wanted to experience the countryside, they should at least go to famous places like Ninh Binh or Ha Giang. Speaking of Khan, she pulled out her phone and called him. "Khan, it's Mrs. Huyen. Is Mi with you?" Khan's voice was full of surprise. "No, she's not. After lunch yesterday, Mi said she had an appointment with a friend, so I dropped her off at the Sauham Cafe on Nguyen Tai Hoc Street." "What's wrong, Mrs. Huyen? Hasn't Mi come home yet?" Mrs. Huyen's face crumpled, and her voice broke. "Oh no, something's happened." Mrs. Huyen and Mr. Thursday were taken by the district police to the scene where the young woman's body had been found. The body was placed on a blue tarp covered by a white sheet from head to toe. When the police pulled back the sheet, even without seeing her face clearly, just from the clothes and the handbag next to the victim, Mrs. Huyen fainted because she clearly remembered the outfit Mi was wearing when she left the house with Khan. The police said that early that morning, a farmer had gone to check his rice paddies and drain the water to prevent flooding. But when he noticed the water was blocked, he went to inspect the culvert and accidentally discovered a woman's body trapped inside. The farmer immediately ran to alert the locals and reported it to the police. When the police arrived, they sealed off the area, took photos, and recorded data before removing the victim's body. The girl's purse still contained her wallet and ID card. As a result, the police were quickly able to identify her and notify her family. Mi's body was kept at the hospital morgue for a day and a night for the coroner to conduct an autopsy before it was returned to her family for burial. At Mi's funeral, Mrs. Huyen cried uncontrollably. She couldn't believe her daughter's life had been cut so short. Besides Mr. Thursday, Mrs. Huyen, and the housekeeper Van, Khan, Not, Fan, and even Mr. Hai, Mi's biological father, were also present. Although she hated Mr. Hai, respect for the dead was paramount. Mrs. Huyen couldn't bring herself to prevent him from seeing his daughter off. Like Mrs. Huyen, they were all heartbroken and shocked by Mi's sudden passing. Fan broke down beside Mrs. Huyen, and in her moments of lucidity, she wailed, "Mi, wake up! We promised to go to Hajong together. Why did you leave us like this?" Not was also in deep grief. "Who hurt me? She couldn't have fallen into the drain by herself. Who killed her? If you have a soul, reveal yourself and point out his name. I'll avenge you." Not spoke as he glared at Khan with a hateful look. Not clearly suspected Khan was involved in Mi's death. Because Khan was the last person to see Mi before her attitude of indifference, it could be said that Not hated him. Khan remained calm. He stood silently with his hands clasped in front of the coffin in a solemn manner. Mr. Thursday stood behind Not and reminded him, "Not, you need to calm down. I know you suspect Khan, but we need evidence. The police are investigating. The truth will come out." Van sat next to Mrs. Huyen, and although she didn't say anything, she occasionally felt a chill run down her spine because she remembered that stormy night. She grabbed an umbrella and ran out to open the door for Mi to come inside. Now she could confirm that she had seen a ghost that night. She was certain it was Mi's ghost returning. At 10 p.m., there were no more visiting mourners. Everyone sat around a table drinking water outside in the courtyard, listening to Mr. Thursday's instructions for tomorrow. Because Mi's body had been submerged in water and had undergone an autopsy in the morgue, Mrs. Huyen decided to keep her daughter's coffin at home for only 1 day and 1 night, and take it for cremation the next morning. While Mr. Thursday was assigning tasks to everyone, Van suddenly felt like someone was watching her. She looked up and froze when she saw Mi's figure faintly standing next to the coffin. She was pointing at everyone, as if trying to say something. Van blinked a few times, and the vision disappeared. That night, Mrs. Huyen was taken to her room to rest by Mr. Thursday. Khan went home, while Not and Fan stayed by the coffin. The two of them soon fell asleep from exhaustion. Only Van quietly lit incense and walked around the house praying. She knew her mistress was kind, and perhaps her soul was somewhere in the house, quietly watching everyone. Van was just a simple, honest, and good-natured housekeeper from the countryside. She didn't know why her mistress had appeared to her that stormy night and scared her half to death. So she was very afraid, and she held the incense and prayed. "Mi, you were harmed by someone. Please find the person who harmed you and take revenge. Don't appear and scare this old woman. I'm so scared, my dear." A tap on her shoulder made Van jump. She turned around and recognized Fan, Mi's best friend. "Auntie, what's wrong? You don't look too good." "Oh, Fan, you scared me to death." Seeing Fan's confused expression, Van pulled her aside and whispered, "Mi's spirit is very powerful. I just saw her." "Auntie, what are you talking about? Don't scare me. I'm telling you the truth. This is the second time." So Van revealed to Fan that on the night the police confirmed Mi's death, she had seen her ghost appear and ring the doorbell, then enter the ancestral hall and scare her into a faint. Just now, Mi was standing next to her own coffin, pointing towards the table where everyone was drinking water. Because Mi appeared for such a short time, Van didn't have time to tell everyone. She was afraid Mi was haunting her, so she lit incense and walked around the house praying. If it was truly Mi who appeared, then she must have something to say. The police had determined that she was murdered. The most suspicious person was Khan. He had an untrustworthy face. When he stood next to Mi's coffin, he didn't shed a single tear. "I'm sure he's involved in Mi's death." Van had the same feeling as Fan, but she didn't dare say it because she was afraid Mrs. Huyen would scold her. Van knew Mrs. Huyen valued the wealthy young man. Mrs. Huyen always wanted to marry me off to Khan, so she could easily borrow money from her son-in-law later. That's just how Mrs. Huyen was. Possessions were everything. She didn't care about me's thoughts. To Mrs. Huyen, money was the measure of happiness. Having money meant having everything. Through the eyes of someone who valued emotions, Van knew me didn't love Khan. She only went out with Khan to make Mrs. Huyen happy. Because she was always living for others, me was never truly happy. Van had once caught me crying alone in the kitchen. When she asked, me avoided the question. What else could make a young girl sad besides love? Van guessed in her heart that during the date with Khan that day, there had been an argument between the two. Then, in the heat of the moment, Khan lost control and harmed me. But that was just a guess with absolutely no evidence. After me's funeral, one by one, the people in Mrs. Huyen's household were summoned to the police station to give statements. This time, the police had new leads and had also learned some surprising things about Mr. Thursday and Mrs. Huyen. They had found out that Mrs. Huyen had purchased life insurance for me. Her death would bring her a large sum of money. Under questioning by the police, she slammed her hand on the table in anger. What? You suspect me of killing my own daughter for insurance money? That's ridiculous. Let me tell you, you can get away with bribery, but not with making false accusations. The female police officer asked her to sit down and not cause a scene. She said, "We have the right to be suspicious because we discovered you have a large debt that is due. Where were you between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. on the 20th? I was at home. Does anyone have an alibi? Your husband and the housekeeper." "Oh, yes, I have a security camera." Mrs. Huyen answered the police very confidently. But when the camera footage was extracted, it showed her leaving the house at 6:30 p.m. and returning home at 11:30 p.m. the same day. Mrs. Huyen said that she went out almost every night to visit her restaurant. Also, walking for exercise or getting some fresh air would be beneficial. Did she go with anyone that day? No, I went alone that time, exercising until midnight. Mrs. Huyen lowered her head and remained silent, seemingly having something difficult to say. Because there were no witnesses, Mrs. Huyen naturally became a suspect in me's death. Even though she was me's biological mother, even Mr. Thursday was not exempt from suspicion. The police also found out that Mr. Thursday and Mrs. Huyen had only registered their marriage 3 months ago. Moreover, like Mrs. Huyen, Mr. Thursday was also entangled in debt with organized crime. Mr. Thursday's neighbors reported that they had seen him being blocked and threatened by loan sharks. In other words, both husband and wife were experiencing financial difficulties. me's death, along with the insurance money, would be an escape for them. Mrs. Huyen retorted loudly, "It's true we're in debt, but I still have that huge house. I haven't been driven to the point of doing something as heartless as you people say." At the same time, in another interrogation room, a police officer asked Mr. Thursday, "What were you doing on the evening of Ms. Me's incident?" I was at a coffee shop." "Which coffee shop? Is there anyone to prove it?" "No, it's just a small coffee shop, no cameras." So, Mr. Thursday had no alibi. The couple was released but barred from leaving their place of residence to assist in the investigation. Khan was also called in for questioning. He stated that on the afternoon of the 20th, he and me had lunch at Vin Bao restaurant on Pham Hong Tai Street. Afterwards, me said she had an appointment with a friend, so they parted ways. Khan took me to the Sauham coffee shop on Nguyen Tai Hoc Street and then left. Khan's testimony completely matched the investigation by the task force. About 15 minutes later, me took a taxi and left the cafe. The taxi's license plate was recorded, but the driver said me only went a short distance before paying and getting out of the car. From then on, me's journey became a mystery. What was disadvantageous for Khan was that he did not go home that evening but drove to a sidewalk grill in Tui Ki Ward to drink alone. At that time, the place was very crowded, but there were no security cameras, so Khan could not prove what he said. The female police officer looked straight into Khan's eyes and asked, "Employees at Vin Bao restaurant said they saw you two arguing. Did me want to break up with you, so you harmed her?" Khan was startled, his eyes somewhat worried, but he immediately denied it. Yes, we argued, but that's normal when two people are in love. I wouldn't do anything to her over a small conflict. You said there was a small conflict between you and her. What was that conflict? Why did me want to break up with you? Khan was silent for a moment and then admitted, I've loved me for 2 years. We were supposed to get married as soon as she nodded her head in agreement. She always said she wanted to study for a master's degree before getting married. But that day, when we were having lunch together, she suddenly asked to break up. I couldn't keep calm and questioned her. That's why there was an argument, as you know. Did she state the reason why she wanted to break up with you? I asked. But Me only said that she felt we weren't compatible. Do you know who Me was meeting? Khan shook his head and said, I respect my girlfriend's privacy, so I didn't pry into who Me was meeting, but I think it was probably just a regular school friend. Because if she was dating another man, she wouldn't have let Khan take her there. After the interrogation, Khan was allowed to return home. But like Mr. Thursday and Mrs. Huyen, he was temporarily not allowed to leave his place of residence to continue assisting in the investigation. The two investigators, Tra and Min, had the same thought. They needed to find out whom he last met that day. This was a mystery because the security camera at the Sauham coffee shop showed that Me was sitting there alone and constantly texting someone. At the crime scene, all of Me's belongings, from her designer handbag to her wallet and personal papers, were still there. Only her cell phone was missing. From this, it could be confirmed that the perpetrator was not a common thief but definitely had a relationship with the victim. On the night of the murder, from 12 o'clock midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning, it rained heavily, inadvertently erasing the traces of the killer. Forensic records showed that the cause of Me's death was trauma to the neck, causing airway obstruction. Simply put, Me was strangled to death and then her body was stuffed into the drain to hide it. According to inquiries, friends and neighbors said that Me was a kind, approachable person who had never feuded with anyone. Even on social media, she was a discreet person who rarely shared anything attention-grabbing. So, if someone wanted to harm Me besides the purpose of profiting from money, what other reason could there be? Therefore, Mrs. Huyen and Mr. Thursday were still the number one suspects. Music. Due to the impact of the tropical depression, it rained a lot, especially at night. Even in the enclosed, high-walled house, Mrs. Van always felt anxious and apprehensive. Constantly imagining Me's ghost made her scared, especially on rainy nights like tonight. Unlike her employers, Mrs. Van had insomnia. Even a small noise would wake her up. Once she was awake, she couldn't go back to sleep. Since Me's death, Mrs. Van had wanted to ask Mrs. Huyen for leave several times. Living in a house with so much negative energy was difficult for someone as timid as Mrs. Van. However, because she had been with Mrs. Huyen for over a decade and felt sorry for her after losing her daughter, Mrs. Van hesitated to voice her intention. For a long time, Mrs. Van had considered Mrs. Huyen and her daughter as family, treating them with sincerity. Now that something had happened to the young mistress, she couldn't just leave. Lying restlessly in bed, unable to sleep, she remembered the blurry image of Me standing next to the coffin, pointing towards the drinking table where many people were sitting. Even now, she was still confused, not sure if it was really Me's ghost or just an illusion. While lost in thought, a knock suddenly came at the door. Mrs. Van turned over and immediately asked, "Who is it?" The question popped out like a natural reflex. In reality, there were only 3 people in this house now: Mr. Thursday, Mrs. Huyen, and her. Mr. Thursday would never look for the housekeeper in the middle of the night. And Mrs. Huyen, with her habit of speaking before thinking, wouldn't politely knock on Mrs. Van's door like that. "Who is it?" she asked again, as the knocking continued, disjointedly, without a regular rhythm. Mrs. Van felt that something was wrong, her heart starting to pound. She decided not to open the door but picked up her phone to call her employer. The other end answered, and Mrs. Van whispered in a hurried breath, "Mrs., where are you? Someone is knocking on my door." But all she heard in response was an incomprehensible silence and the whistling of wind, as if she were in a field or empty lot. Mrs. Van said hello several times, but no one answered. Finally, she put down the phone and looked closely, startled to realize that she had called Mi's number, not Mrs. Huyen's. She fearfully threw the phone away and covered herself tightly with the blanket, her whole body trembling. She was sure that she was being haunted. She recited Buddhist prayers and clasped her hands, begging Mi's soul to spare her. "Don't come and bother me anymore. I'm so scared." The next morning, Mrs. Van went to the market early to buy fruit and votive papers to burn incense on Mi's altar. She clasped her hands and prayed, "Mi, you live well in the afterlife. Have mercy on the old woman. Don't come and scare me anymore. I'm so pitiful." After she finished praying, a very faint scent suddenly wafted over. Mrs. Van would never forget that it was the perfume that Mi used to wear. She shuddered and reflexively looked around to see if anyone was near her. But of course, she was the only one in the ancestral hall at the moment. Mrs. Van worriedly bowed 3 more times and then took the stack of votive money down to the yard to burn. The scene quickly caught Mrs. Huyen's eye. She came down next to Mrs. Van and asked, "What are you doing? Burning money so early in the morning? Didn't I have a whole pack of votive money burned at Mi's funeral?" Mrs. Van looked at Mrs. Huyen with a worried expression. She immediately recounted the events of the previous night. She asserted, "I swear it was Mi's ghost, Mrs. I'm so scared. I think I'll ask to leave after today. I don't dare stay here anymore." Mrs. Huyen's eyes suddenly turned red. She brought a handkerchief to her nose and sniffled, then lamented, "That Mi is so unfilial. She's still making things difficult for her family after she's dead. She's caused her mother to be suspected of being a murderer by the police. Now even the housekeeper is leaving. This house is really out of luck." Mrs. Huyen's emotion made Mrs. Van temporarily flustered, not knowing how to comfort her. Mrs. Huyen suddenly said, "All right, you keep people who want to stay, not those who want to leave. I won't make things difficult for you. You can leave if you want, but wait a few more days for me to find someone to replace you. Besides, we've been together for so many years. Now that you're going back to your hometown, I have to prepare a proper farewell gift for you, or else this Huyen woman will have no face left." Hearing that, Mrs. Van was very touched. She decided to stay until Mrs. Huyen found a replacement. As usual, after finishing breakfast, Mrs. Huyen and Mr. Thursday went to the 3 Pho restaurants to oversee and check on the work there. As soon as the two left, Fan and Not arrived. They went straight to the ancestral hall to burn incense for their deceased friend, then stayed to talk with Mrs. Van. When they learned that Mrs. Van was experiencing strange things related to Mi, Not advised, "I don't think you should stay here any longer. Mi was killed, her soul hasn't been reincarnated, and I'm afraid she's harboring resentment and will come back to drag her family down with her. I've already asked to leave, but my employer won't let me. She wants me to work until she finds a replacement. I think Mrs. Huyen is really suspicious. Her daughter was just murdered, but she quickly recovered. I just passed by the Pho restaurant and saw her scolding the staff loudly. Having such a cold-hearted mother, Mi must be heartbroken. I heard she bought life insurance for me. The police suspect she's the murderer of her daughter. Mrs. Van, if that's true, then you're staying next to a murderer." Fan's speculation made Mrs. Van's heart even more confused. If that was the case, then perhaps she should leave right now without further delay. After seeing Fan and Not off, Mrs. Van received 2 more familiar guests, the 2 investigators, Tra and Min. This was the 3rd time these 2 had come here. They asked Mrs. Van for permission to enter Mi's bedroom to look for clues. Of course, they were asking for permission, not presenting a search warrant from their superiors. Seeing Mrs. Van's ashen face, Min asked caringly, "Auntie, can't you sleep? You look so tired." "Yes, I have chronic insomnia, so my face is always pale like this." Mrs. Van opened Mi's room for the 2 to enter. As the door opened, Min immediately noticed something unusual. "Huh, did someone just enter the room? Oh no, since Ms. Mi died, this room has always been locked. Even the owner hasn't come in here. No one came in. Then why is the floor so dirty?" Mrs. Van had been so busy talking that she hadn't noticed. After hearing Min ask, she also immediately noticed the strangeness. On the shiny, polished stone floor, There were stains like dried watermarks. Even though she had cleaned it thoroughly the day before, she suddenly trembled, clasped her hands, and turned around. "Oh my God! It's Ms. Me. Ms. Me is showing herself, officers. Me, you live well in the afterlife, don't scare me anymore." Tra and Min looked at each other, exchanging glances. While Min went around observing the room, Tra went over to comfort Mrs. Van. The two stepped out into the hallway to let Mrs. Van calm down. Tra asked, "Why did you say Me's ghost is showing herself? Could that really be true?" Mrs. Van couldn't hide her fear and recounted everything she had experienced to the female police officer, including the story of me knocking on her door last night, scaring her half to death. To prove she wasn't lying, she gave her phone to Tra so she could see the call history. She said, "I was so scared yesterday that I called my employer, but for some reason it ended up calling Me's number. I saw her answer, but she didn't say anything. Oh my God, if this keeps up, I'm going to lose my mind." Indeed, the phone displayed a call to Me's number, but the connection failed. Me did not answer the call as Mrs. Van said. Perhaps she was too panicked and imagined it. However, Tra still listened attentively to Mrs. Van's story. As a police officer, Tra certainly didn't believe in ghosts. "Before the incident happened, did you see me acting strangely?" "Oh, once Ms. Me got drunk. I saw her crying alone in her room. I went over to ask and comfort her. Ms. Me hugged me and said something like, 'I'm the one at fault, he betrayed me.' I thought she and Khan had argued, so I comforted her. But the next day, when she sobered up, she was very happy, as if nothing had happened." Music. All of Mrs. Van's statements were meticulously recorded. At this time, all the suspicion turned back to Khan. Perhaps they had some conflict that they both wanted to hide. At exactly 10 a.m., Tra and Min said goodbye to Mrs. Van and returned to the police station. Before leaving, Min didn't forget to give Mrs. Van a few instructions. It was unclear what he said, only that Mrs. Van kept nodding, but her expression was extremely tense. On Me's 7th-day memorial, Mrs. Huyen invited the medium Tan to come to the house to perform a ceremony to pray for her daughter's soul to be released. After all, everything that the medium had predicted about Me's misfortune had come true. Therefore, Mrs. Huyen had even more faith in the medium. Of course, the ceremony could not be without those who were close to me when she was alive. That was not Fan, Khan, and even Mr. Hai, Me's biological father. Even though Mrs. Huyen hated Mr. Hai's mother, she still took into account that he was a kind man. Except for always listening to his mother, Mr. Hai still cared about Mrs. Huyen and her daughter. Before Me's altar, everyone looked pained, especially Mrs. Huyen. Perhaps because she wanted everyone to know how much she grieved for her daughter. She bought a lot of votive offerings, from houses and cars to the latest Apple phones, to burn down for me. She also wailed loudly, wanting the world to understand her pain at this time. When the ceremony ended, the medium Tan left the house to perform ceremonies for other families. The rest of the people sat at the table to have a meal in memory of the deceased. Not used to be a close friend, but always treated me like a younger sister. At this time, seeing Khan, he felt extremely disgusted. Because he always assumed that Khan was the perpetrator who killed me. Because he couldn't control himself, he said reproachful words. "Do you still have the face to be here? Can you look at Me's photo and not feel ashamed? No one welcomes you here." Khan remained calm. He looked straight into Nat's eyes and replied, "Why should I be ashamed? I didn't do anything wrong to me. She is the one who knows best in heaven. On the contrary, someone who is in debt and hiding something shady needs to fear their own spirit." Khan glanced at Mr. Thursday. At this time, he covered his mouth, turned his face away, and coughed like someone with pneumonia. After the coughing fit, he pointed at Mr. Hai's face and said in a grating voice, "Everyone knows that you and your mother still hate Mrs. Huyen because she didn't let me take the house. Is that why the two of you plotted to harm her?" On Thursday said, "That's right. We discovered that his family cast a spell on my family. If the medium Tan hadn't discovered the arrow pointing at this house, I might have been dead already. Too much. The restaurant is my mother's and wife's. They put my name on the restaurant, but I don't know anything about it. In an instant, the meal became noisy and chaotic with insults, curses, and blaming each other for Me's departure. Seeing that scene, Mrs. Van couldn't restrain herself and spoke up. "Stop it. Everyone calm down. Today is Me's 7th-day memorial. Please don't make a fuss anymore." The police said they will definitely investigate and find the perpetrator. They told me that in the moment the killer attacked Ms. Me, she would definitely resist and leave marks on the criminal's hands. Just find someone with scratches on their hands, and that's the suspect. Before Mrs. Van's words, the atmosphere immediately calmed down. Without anyone saying anything, everyone unconsciously looked down at their hands. Then, as if to prove their innocence, they all raised their hands high for the others to see that their hands were unscathed. "Did the police say anything else, Mrs. Van?" Mrs. Huyen suddenly spoke up. Mrs. Van sighed and revealed, "The police said Me was an introverted person with many thoughts. She definitely kept a diary. Just find her diary and we'll find some clues." Thanks to Mrs. Van's words, Me's 7th-day memorial meal became peaceful again. Everyone stopped arguing and blaming each other. After the meal ended, when everyone went home, Mrs. Huyen immediately ran upstairs. She unlocked her daughter's room and started searching for the diary that Mrs. Van had mentioned. Since her daughter's death, everything in this room had been kept intact, untouched. According to the investigator's reminder, Me's room was very tidy and had few things. But Mrs. Huyen, after a long search, Mr. Thursday couldn't find any notebook that resembled a diary. What diary? These days they all write their stories on social media. Who has time to jot down diary entries in a notebook like you and I used to? You're right, honey. If there were one, it would have surfaced by now. Let's get some rest. Okay? Midnight struck, and once again, Mrs. Van was startled by the sound of someone knocking on her bedroom door. She was terrified, but today she felt a bit braver because of the amulet that the shaman had given her to ward off evil. The shaman had said that as long as she kept the amulet with her, no ghosts or demons could harm her. With that thought, Mrs. Van felt much more confident. She cautiously approached the door, pressing her ear against it to listen. She heard faint footsteps, as if someone had just walked away. She slightly opened the door to peek outside. From her room, she could see into the living room, and she clearly saw someone heading upstairs. The only light in the house was from the night lights, not enough for Mrs. Van to recognize who it was. She murmured to herself that if it really was Me's ghost coming to find her, then she must have something to say. Strange things happen all the time, and even if spirits do appear, not everyone can see them. Perhaps it was because she and Me were compatible that she was the only one who could see her. Remembering Me when she was alive, she was very fond of Mrs. Van. Even though she didn't confide in her about everything, she always treated her like family, saving her the best treats and bringing her gifts whenever she went out. How she was in life, so she was in death. Mrs. Van didn't believe that Me's ghost would want to harm her. With that thought, Mrs. Van boldly went upstairs, following the shadow she had seen. The shadow disappeared in front of the first room on the 3rd floor. The door was still slightly ajar, and there was a rustling sound and the beam of a flashlight coming from inside. Mrs. Van clearly saw someone rummaging through things. Her heart pounded with anxiety. No one was supposed to be staying in that room. Mrs. Huyen still used it as a storage room, putting any unused items there. Even Me's old books, magazines, and belongings were stored there. When she was alive, Me wouldn't let Mrs. Van sell the old papers. She said to save them up so she could send them to charities for underprivileged children. Mrs. Van was certain that whoever was rummaging around inside was a thief. If it were the owners of the house, they would have turned on the lights to search properly. No one would use a flashlight to rummage around like that. At this moment, Mrs. Van was extremely alert and clear-headed. She quietly closed the door, locked it from the outside, and then ran quickly downstairs to the 2nd floor, banging on the door of Mr. Thursday and Mrs. Huyen's room. It seemed the thief on the 3rd floor had realized they were trapped. Immediately, there was the sound of glass shattering. Mr. Thursday guessed that the thief had broken a window and was trying to escape that way. He told Mrs. Van to call the police, while he and Mrs. Huyen went to intercept the thief. 3 against 1, they couldn't miss. Down in the yard, Mr. Thursday and Mrs. Huyen clearly saw the thief rappelling down from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor. They shouted to the neighbors to come and help catch the thief. Perhaps in a panic, the thief lost their grip and fell from a height of about 10 feet to the ground. But because they were wearing protective gear, and the ground was covered in artificial turf, they were unharmed. Mr. Thursday immediately pinned the thief to the ground and held them tight. Several neighbors also came running over to assist. When Mr. Thursday removed the thief's mask, all 3 members of Mrs. Huyen's family were stunned in disbelief. It wasn't a stranger at all, but someone very close to their family. 15 minutes later, the police took the thief away. He was held in custody until the next morning when he was interrogated by Detectives Tra and Min. Why did you break into Mrs. Huyen's house? What were you planning to find? The thief remained silent, knowing that the penalty for breaking into someone's house was very light, so he was very relaxed. Min refused to give up. He smirked and raised the pink notebook, confidently saying, "You probably wanted to find this. It was me's diary." The thief's eyes widened. Quickly, he looked down at his feet, his hands clasped together, revealing his nervousness. Suddenly, he looked directly into Min's eyes. "What do you mean? I don't understand." Min knew that the thief in front of him was a cunning fox, so he replied, "You're afraid that this diary will reveal the relationship between you and me, so you had to come to Mrs. Huyen's house to find it. Am I right, Mr. Knott?" The thief was none other than Knott. It was unbelievable that the guilty party was him. Knott was slightly flustered, but he quickly regained his composure and said, "A diary doesn't prove anything. Even if I wanted to steal it, it wouldn't prove that I killed me. You should remember that my act of trespassing is only punishable by a minor fine." Min nodded in agreement with what Knott said. It was true that for a crime like trespassing, Knott wouldn't face a heavy penalty. However, based on Mi's diary, the police presented the following argument. Knott was Mi's secret lover. They were in love but didn't make it public because they were afraid of Mrs. Huyen's disapproval. Mi hesitated to marry Khan because of him. But recently, Mi had discovered that Knott was playing the field. The person Knott really loved was Fan. He had gotten to know Mi for the sake of her family's money. Fan knew about Knott and Mi's relationship but deliberately hid it. The two of them had discussed that once they had taken enough advantage of Mi, Knott would break up with her and make his relationship with Fan public. That was probably why, on the night of July 20th, Mi had arranged to meet with Knott and Fan for a final showdown. Ultimately, a conflict arose, and Mi was murdered by Knott. However, that was just a one-sided assumption from the police. Knott insisted on denying this accusation. He said that Mi did have feelings for him, but it was only one-sided. "I never loved Mi, nor did I take advantage of her. On the night Mi was harmed, Fan and I were in Hajong. We took photos and posted them on social media. You can verify that." Min countered, "You can post whenever you want. You could have taken a bunch of photos beforehand and posted them on that exact day. It doesn't prove that you didn't meet me on the night of the 20th or the morning of the 21st. This time, Knott's face turned pale. When he was arrested, his phone was confiscated by the police. Even though Knott had deleted many messages, they would quickly recover them for the investigation. Min revealed his cards to Knott. He stated that he and Tra had spread the news about the diary to lure the killer. Sure enough, Knott had taken the bait. At Mrs. Huyen's house, Min had discovered suspicious traces in Mi's room, which indicated that someone had broken in to take something. There were traces of metal scraping on the window. Min said, "You are someone trusted by Mrs. Huyen's family, so it's very easy for you to enter that house. The day before, you secretly disabled the surveillance camera at the gate of Mrs. Tam's house. And then, in the middle of the night, you broke into Mi's room by scaling the wall. You're a parkour enthusiast. You have all the climbing gear, don't you?" Tra presented a stack of photos to Knott, all of them showing Mi's room before and after the break-in. They revealed that several of Mi's belongings were missing, such as the ceramic cup she always kept on the table and the gold-plated watch in the glass case. Min continued, "On the first night of the break-in, you took advantage of the rain and scaled the wall using a rope with a hook to climb up to the second floor. You entered Mi's room through the window and took the things you had given her, like the color-changing ceramic cup and the gold-plated watch. You wanted to erase all traces of yourself in her room. Because Mi's room is always locked, you were forced to resort to theft." Min's reasoning was very sound, leaving Not speechless. At this point, they also obtained a search warrant for Not's house. Min believed that Not hadn't had enough time to destroy all the evidence. If they could find the color-changing cup and the gold-plated watch, everything would be clear. Not still tried to argue. "I didn't kill me. If I had hurt her, there would be traces on my body, right?" Not tried to draw attention to his smooth hands, but Min only shook his head, saying, "When you harmed her, you wore gloves, just like you're wearing now." Min's statement revealed a critical point: the gloves that Not had worn on the day Mi was murdered. During Mi's autopsy, the forensic team discovered that her fingernails were torn. In the torn area, they found traces of a material used to make gloves, the kind that motorcyclists or adventurers often use. Min immediately had someone remove Not's gloves and put them in a sterile bag for the forensics lab to analyze. At this point, Not completely broke down. He couldn't hide his crime anymore. Min had known all along that, when dealing with an amateur murderer like Not, it was easy to get the upper hand. He was easily swayed with just a few pieces of bait. After searching Not's house, the police indeed discovered that Not and Fan were living together as husband and wife. Fan had moved in with Not immediately after Mi's death. At Not's house, they also found the color-changing ceramic cup and the gold-plated watch engraved with Not and Mi's names. When hot water was poured into the cup, the words, "I love you," appeared, signed Not. Since the cup didn't have Mi's name on it as the recipient, Not had given it to Fan after taking it back. He planned to sell the watch when the time was right, once everything had calmed down. This also proved that Min's assumptions were correct. Not had indeed taken advantage of the victim's feelings, and there was no genuine love from Not towards me as he had claimed. If he hadn't been seducing me, then why would he give her those gifts? At the police station, Not confessed to the whole truth. He took advantage of Mi's lack of affection for Mrs. Huyen, and the fact that she was being forced to marry Khan. So he played the role of a good friend to gradually gain Mi's favor. She fell in love with him without even realizing it. But Mi didn't dare to disobey Mrs. Huyen to be with Not. That's why the two of them loved each other in secret. Recently, she had discovered that Not and Fan were secretly seeing each other behind her back. Not even texted Fan, saying that he only saw Mi as a younger sister. Mi was very hurt, so that day, as soon as Not returned from Hajong, she had asked him to meet her to talk. Mi originally wanted to meet Not at a cafe afterwards, but Not insisted on meeting her in a secluded, private place. He took me to the outskirts of the city, just so no one would interfere in their conversation. But when he saw that Mi was determined to break up, Not went crazy. He didn't want to lose his gold mine, so in a moment of madness, he threatened her. Unexpectedly, his anger caused me to leave forever. At that moment, Not was terrified. He wasn't a professional killer, so when he saw a nearby ditch, he dragged me down there to hide the body. Unfortunately, the very next morning, a farmer who was draining water from his rice field to prevent flooding discovered Mi's body. From then on, the matter couldn't be prolonged. Finally, the culprit was brought to light. On the 49th day after Mi's death, Mrs. Huyen continued to invite both the shaman and the monk to perform ceremonies for her daughter. That day, several of Mrs. Huyen's friends came to help. A woman named Ha whispered to Mr. Thursday, "Between you and me, it was the police who caught the criminal, not some spirit who guided Mrs. Huyen to kill her daughter for the insurance money." With her love for gossip, this woman revealed to Mr. Thursday that on the night Mi was murdered, Mrs. Huyen was actually gambling, not going for a walk as she had told the police. She was afraid the police would arrest her for gambling, so she had to hide that fact. "Mr. Thursday, you have to advise her to stop. So many people have lost their homes and families because of gambling. She hasn't gone too deep yet. She can still be saved." Mr. Thursday nodded in agreement. While the two of them were talking, there was a sudden commotion outside the gate. Mrs. Van ran in, panicked and said, "Sir, madam, there's a very fierce woman outside who keeps yelling to see Mr. Thursday." Mrs. Huyen frowned, walking out while saying, "Who's trying to cause trouble now? Where is she?" As soon as Mrs. Huyen stepped outside, the strange woman started yelling, "Thursday, you come out here now. You bastard. How dare you dump me? I'll make sure you regret this. You dog." Mrs. Huyen, not knowing what was going on, grabbed the woman by the hair, dragged her inside, and pointed to the photo of her and Mr. Thursday hanging on the wall. "You crazy woman, look closely. Thursday is my husband. Got it? Do you believe I'll call the police on you for destroying someone else's family happiness?" Then she turned to Mr. Thursday, who was hiding in a corner, and shouted, "Thursday, you come out here. Come out here and face me. I've pampered you, provided for you, and you dare treat me like this? You good for nothing." It turned out that even though he was married to Mrs. Huyen, Mr. Thursday was still seeing a younger woman in the hope of having a child. He was afraid that Mrs. Huyen was too old to bear a child for him, so he did something unethical and illegal. He was in debt because he was providing for his mistress. On the night Me was harmed, he was with that woman. That was why he didn't dare to tell the police the truth when they questioned him. They had been together for a long time, but she never got pregnant, so Mr. Thursday wanted to leave her. That was why she came to his house to make a scene and embarrass him. Mrs. Huyen cursed for a while before fainting from the shock. Mr. Thursday quickly carried her to the car and took her to the hospital. Unexpectedly, the doctor announced that she was pregnant. This news was so sudden that even Mrs. Huyen couldn't believe it. She was going to be a mother again at the age of 47. Mr. Thursday was overjoyed. He was ecstatic, even as Mrs. Huyen cursed him and told him to leave. He kept smiling from ear to ear and stubbornly stayed to take care of his wife and child. After being encouraged and persuaded by everyone, Mrs. Huyen finally agreed to give Mr. Thursday a chance to make amends. After all, Mr. Thursday didn't have any feelings for the other woman. He just wanted a child, which led to the affair. Returning home, standing in front of her daughter's altar, Mrs. Huyen sobbed, "My child, I know I've wronged you a lot. If you agree, please be reborn in my womb. Be my child again so I can atone for my sins. I've done so many things wrong in my life, but the one thing I'll never regret is being your mother." Mr. Thursday stood beside her, taking the incense sticks from his wife's hand and placing them in the incense burner in front of Me's portrait on her behalf. Up above, it seemed like Me was smiling down at them. Dear listeners, you have just finished listening to the short story, The Spiritual Case of the Huyen Noodle Shop, a creation by Hoi Yusi. Thank you for listening. Wishing you a good night's rest.